Well, good evening, folks, and welcome into this edition of This Week in Pearl, or the winter edition as it is. We've got with us the mayor, Jake Windham, who I'm not sure if he knows that he's been the mayor of Pearl, Mississippi, or Pearl, Alaska over the last 4 or 5 days, but man, it has just been unrecognizable stuff we haven't seen in, more than 20 years?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I think the last ice storm that I remember that was of any significance was I was a junior in high school, so and we had one in the late 80s as well. But I think with that at this time we've been fortunate. God's been good to us. We have not had these power lines icing up, and also people have not been without power. So I'm very thankful for that. We've had a couple of shutdowns in certain part of the city just due to energy trying to regulate the power grid, but that was not anything actually going on as far as a repair. So those things have been good. PD and fire and public works have just been on the grind.
Jobs.
Yeah, we got a couple guys that just have been here for several days and going out there, seeing some of them and seeing if they need any type of resources. They're tired, but they keep moving on, and they're doing a tremendous job for the citizens of our city. So I'm very thankful for that too.
You know, the initial forecast when this all started early on Sunday morning, about mid-morning, you know, our initial forecast was for a lot of freezing rain.
Yeah.
And up to a half an inch of ice. You know, I think we got fortunate because it all fell as sleet and snow, about maybe 2.5 inches. It just created a travel nightmare. That's really what it became. And, you know, I want to go through each department just to talk about the work that they've been doing out on those roads. Because for the most part, there was nothing they could do, to be perfectly honest. But, you know, when we start with Public Works, why don't you talk about, you know, the crews, the street department that had just been, you know, doing whatever they could to keep these roads open.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So most of those guys work for the street department, but there's also the water guys, utility guys that go out and repair leaks. They combine forces together because they can operate equipment. And they've been running trucks. We started out with salt. We were able to get to some areas that we thought that could probably have some significant ice. So those guys have been doing that for the last 4 days, just rolling and then taking the equipment and trying to push things out, trying to make sure that we have some of our roads that are passable. Not all of them are, and it's really tough to deal with that during the process of you having this much precipitation and then it freezing. But again, we didn't have the freezing rain, so I'm glad about that. But they've just worked together. They've identified problems. I think you're well aware of an app that we have. It's called Emergency Operations, that everybody can speak to one another. I think that's key. So let me back up, Public Works, Fire Department, and PD. It's an app on a phone that we're all communicating information. Dispatch is sending it out, and we can all react to it. A lot of times you don't have that luxury in other cities. The IT department, which you're signed in, Frank was instrumental in pushing that out, and it's been very, very helpful for us. So we can be on the same page. And something else that it does for our big 3 departments, it doesn't. We come from being one department to an entire unit. Those 3 departments combine together when they're working and communicating like that, and that works very well. And they appreciate working with other departments, and it builds pride. And those guys have went out on a daily basis. Some of them have worked 15, 20 hours a day, haven't seen their families on the public works side, and also on the police department side. But our main goal right now is to try to clear some roads, heavy travel areas, clear those roads. I know it's going to freeze again tonight in the early morning hours. Go back out, put salt, and distribute it as best we can in the areas where we think that there could likely be a wreck or heavy ice could possibly be. So they're aware of those areas. Those guys know this city very well, and they know where things go down, so they'll be able to deploy out there and get to salt and continue to take care of business.
You know, a little bit to defend our public works, because a lot of people are asking, well, why didn't they just keep things salted? Well, 2 things that I've learned. Number one, we typically don't get the ground frozen before things fall here in Mississippi. Usually, you know, we get frozen precipitation, it melts right off the roads, it sticks on the grasses. Our ground was frozen this time, and we got so much sleet so fast, that it packed it in. Now, unless we had snowplows, which we don't
Yeah.
have, and then every side street, every city surface street and the main thoroughfares, it just wasn't wearing down because the temperature was single digits, 10 degrees, teens, that it was just a solid sheet of ice all over the city. And you can't just put salt on the top of it and expect it to go down to the, the base, right?
It's not going to penetrate it. You're going to have some equipment to make any type of headway. There's some other areas that we're doing though, like on the bridges, you can take the piece of equipment, whether it be a front end loader on a backhoe or some of the other things that we've been using, skid steer, to try to clear those areas off where it's very dangerous, and then come back with salt. Right now it's raining as we're doing this, and it would be silly to go out there and put salt on the roads because the rain is just going to push it off. Where we want to come back and salt is like tonight when it stops raining, and then you have these areas, your temperature gets to 32, and then we're having to revisit all these troubled areas within the city. But I just want to talk to our citizens about the fact that we need to stay home until, try not to, just for things that you possibly need. And if you're not very confident in somebody, in yourself as far as driving in these conditions, try to call somebody that has a four-wheel drive. If I do want to reiterate, if you know of somebody that needs food, needs assistance, they can call the city. We can make sure that we try to help. We want to take care of our citizens in a time like this. And when you're in a house for 4 days and you can't go anywhere, sometimes you need assistance. If you can't get in touch with a friend or know someone that can do some things for you, just give us a call. We had one of our city employees was able to go to the pharmacy and get a lady's medication and deliver it to her because she couldn't find anybody. So if you exhaust your resources and you need some help, be sure to call.
Well, and as we talk about our two public safety folks, man, still running calls in the middle of this and, helping people out. The police department, man, cars were sliding all over the road and they were helping motorists. Even had the MRAP, what an investment that former military vehicle was. We knew it was going to pay dividends at some point for maybe high water rescues. I don't think you thought about having it for snow and ice rescues, but man, it was pulling some 18-wheelers off the interstate.
It was. Yesterday, Chief Scott called me. He had been out on the interstate all day, and he said, look, man, we have an issue just past Pearson Road and past where you would travel on I-20 East, past Cunningham Heights. You can see it over there. There's a hill that's about 300 yards long, and those 18-wheelers were just struggling. They couldn't make it up the hill. So we had one of our guys, Reuben Miles, he was in the military, and he's certified to drive one of those vehicles, and he was pulling those semis out, but they were getting stuck left and right. And later on in the evening, when the temperature dropped, we had to make a call from a police power standpoint. We had to shut down the interstate because the issue at that point, when people would come through the city, if we would have left it open and you had semis struggling to get up there, then you would have people striking them in the rear. We would probably have some very severe wrecks, and we were trying to preserve life by making that call. And
well, the hardest part is when vehicles, it's not so bad as people probably realize. If your vehicle keeps moving, you're okay. But it's when you have to come to a stop and then try and start again is what those 18-wheelers were encountering. They'd stop and then forget it. They're not going up.
Yeah, so we were able to divert traffic at 49 last night. So we had semis back to Children Road, and we had some passenger cars and trucks that were inconvenienced for a little while. We were able to get the passenger cars off of the interstate, and then we were able to put more dirt and sand on the off-ramp at Pearson, divert the trucks into our city. I mean,
just to give them some traction, that dirt.
Yeah, the dirt would provide some traction that the truck could get down the ramp. And then they could get on Pearson Road and 80 and they would go slow. Speed is usually the problem, or sliding. And I think it worked out well. We had a lot of trucks that stayed overnight in the city of Pearl last night, but we didn't have wrecks. Our police officers were not in harm's way. That's very dangerous out there on that ice trying to work those wrecks. People will just shoot off the road. I've been out there as an officer working wrecks and seeing people slide and everything else. So it's an unsettling feeling when you're out there. So it was able to provide a good environment for our people. They got everybody deployed off of the interstate, got people home, trucks, and then we opened it up this morning specifically. My intent was to get it past 32 degrees. We know that water
took a
freeze at
long
13.
time.
It did. It did. About 10 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
And we had one semi. We tried it out. Police department was very thoughtful. They said, we're going to let a semi try to go up this hill and make it. And something that people don't know, Public Works had put dirt on that hill so the semis can make it. So with the temperature rising and then deploying the dirt on that hill, semis were able to get up the hill, and then we opened up 20. MDOT was very, very happy about that.
Well, and I will say this, and I want people to understand that, when you're in charge of the city, sometimes you got to make tough calls. And you may hear out there that, MDOT was not very happy with the call that you wanted to make last night. But for the safety of your officers and our citizens and everybody out there, it was a call. It's not one you took lightly to have to try and shut the interstate down in our city, but it's one that you would do again if you had to.
Yeah, I would say that there were some people that were skeptical of the call that was with MDOT. The guy that I lean on a lot over there is Jeff Altman. He's the assistant director of MDOT, and he thought that it was a good call. So in doing so, I know that we were going to cause some traffic problems, but life is more important than sitting in traffic. Inconveniencing someone for a little bit of time. I went down that road. I traveled I-20 in a four-wheel drive,
Yeah.
and it was tough. It was like Lake Placid. I mean, it was sheets, and that's what made me make the decision. Say, hey, look, we can't go up this.
This isn't worth it.
It's not worth it. But it worked out well.
Yep.
Again, we were blessed about that, and this morning opened it up once the temperature rose some, and the semi made it up the hill with the dirt being applied, and we was back in business as far as the interstate goes.
Well, and knock on wood, 4 days into this thing, we've had no major accidents, no major injuries, certainly no fatalities, thank God, and no real big fires around the city. So, I want to applaud our citizens because they've done a good job of staying home. For the most part, they've stayed off the roads, majority of our citizenry. And they've really taken precautions while at home, with space heaters and all these other things that we haven't had big fires.
Yeah. So Brad Thornton with Fire Department, he does a tremendous job, and all his guys do as well. They've been checking on our citizens. We've had some folks that have fallen due to the ice, and of course they're still. Here's the thing: medical calls and calls for the fire department, police department don't stop. They just keep coming during these times. So Brad Thornton has shown a lot of leadership with his department. He continues to, hey, what else do we need to be doing, Mayor? What else can I do to help if I need to support PD or Public Works?
Sure.
He's willing to do that. Chief Scott, he's done a good job, great job supporting his guys out there, being out there with them, and Shane Burrell with Public Works. They have a game plan every day, and everybody's communicating, everybody's on the same page, and I think that we've been able to respond to this winter storm event in a very good way, very positive way. But it takes people doing it, and I'm thankful for the folks that we have in those positions.
It's one of those things. You just said it. You got to have experience. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these guys are now getting the experience, so they can always look back and say, "Yeah, no problem. We dealt with that back in 2021."
Yeah.
So now we can send them out and help other places like New York City. I mean, that's
I don't.
more ice than that. They'll say, "You from Pearl? Yeah. What do you know about ice?"
Yeah.
Oh, we know plenty about an ice storm.
We do. And I appreciate the patience of the citizens. We have some people out riding, but for the most part, everybody stayed home. I know that they're picking up now because the temperatures are where they need to be, so so the roads can be passable. But the citizens have done a tremendous job too, staying at home and understanding the situation.
A couple of quick notes to pass along to people as far as city offices go on Thursday.
Yeah, we're going to close, and this is the decision behind that. You have 260 employees within the city, and then they have children. Their children go to school. So some of these employees, that especially the people that if you bring them in, then they got to find somewhere for their children. Secondly, the current conditions, really, it's going to be freezing in the morning again. Then you still have a lot of precipitation, a lot of water out there. People aren't comfortable driving in it. And this is for non-emergency personnel. I just think in my mind, you have parents having to worry about their children, the stress of driving in. Also, there's ice everywhere, slip and falls and things of that nature. I think it's just a prudent decision. How much can you get done in 2 days? Most of the things that we're dealing with right now are with Public Works, Fire, and PD. So I think that we can adjust and let people work from home. And the other thing is, we've positioned ourselves due to COVID that our folks still can work from home, and a lot of them are doing that right now.
So the city offices will be closed again on Thursday. Administrative offices, municipal court will be rescheduled that was supposed to take place on February 17th. Tomorrow will be rescheduled. So check with court records next week to find out when that is going to be rescheduled. Water bill payments, which were due on the 17th, we're giving you a grace period. That's going to be pushed out another week until the 24th, because there's a lot of people that still like to come by Public Works and pay their bill, which they could not do.
We're not going to force people to pay additional money if they don't pay their bill that way. And to be perfectly honest with you, this ice storm is changing people's habits and their spending habits. So I just think that we need to give our citizens the benefit of the doubt. Put a 7 days on it, the 24th. In my mind, if I can help a couple folks out and that provides a little bit of relief for them, just with everything that's going on, I think that's the right thing to do.
I do, and it's a great. You understand what the people need, the compassion for our people. Whatever we can do, it's going to be tough. It's still going to be a little tough as we go into the weekend, but February's almost over, and then in spring. Yeah,
come on, spring.
The long range forecast.
I'm ready for spring to get here.
10 days of spring.
We were talking the other day. A couple of us talking about the fact that we've had some unprecedented events occur over the last 3.5 years. We had a major flood in Pearl in 2018. You had the river stages get up. And then this ice event. We've had some things that kind of, I guess, put us through the fire, so to speak. And I will say this: our folks have responded well, and I think that they have done a really good job in those events, and they're doing a really good job in this current event that we're dealing with at the moment.
Let's get past it. That's all we can say, and get the ice event out of the way. Well, that's going to do it for this week in Pearl. We hope you join us again soon. Until then, we want you to stay safe, stay warm, and enjoy your time together with your families.